She had been putting off this journey for the better part of a year. She had very good reasons. She had the Henderson boys' arithmetic, and the schoolhouse roof, and the particular stubbornness of a young woman who has confused leaving with freedom. What she did not have, not yet, were questions. The questions found her on the train. Good evening. I'm Sedalia Voss. Tonight's letter arrived in a cedar box wrapped in a handkerchief the color of ivory. Inside were 3 things: a train ticket stub, a pressed sprig of something that may have once been lavender, and a small journal bound in green cloth. The initials E.C.M. pressed into the cover in faded gold. Evangeline Clara Marshall. Born 1883 in Harlan's Hollow, Tennessee. Schoolteacher, daughter, sister, traveler, though she would have told you she was not the traveling kind. She was 22 years old when she wrote this. The daughter of Clara Pryor Marshall, who had grown up in that valley and married Eli Marshall, the youngest son of Gideon Marshall, with whom he shared a stoic and yet generous spirit. Evie, as her family called her, kept notes on her students' lessons plans in her journal. Only once did she write an entry of a personal nature, a single long entry dated October 1905, begun on a train and finished 3 days later in a room she described as smelling of camphor and old curtains. One entry. But some entries contain entire lives. Pull the covers up. The fire is lit. Part 1. The Knoxville Train. October 4th, 1905. I did not want to take this train. I have been not wanting to take it for the better part of a year, which is how long my sister Lottie has been writing me letters, asking when I am coming, and how long I have been writing back with reasonable explanations for why I cannot come just yet. The school term. The Henderson boy who needs extra attention with his sums. The leak in the schoolhouse roof that someone needs to supervise the repair of, and that someone, apparently, is me. I am 22 years old, and I have run out of reasonable explanations. So here I am, the Knoxville to Nashville line, window seat, my good traveling coat, which I have owned for 3 years, and which still fits, one of my more modest personal achievements. The mountains are doing what they always do in October, burning slowly from the top down. The ridges gone amber and copper and a deep red that looks almost like something you could warm your hands over. I have brought a book. I have not opened it. I keep thinking about what Lottie said in her last letter. Not the practical part, the date, the arrangements, the spare room she has made up. The other part. You have always been better at leaving than arriving, Evie. I have been turning that sentence over for 2 weeks like a smooth river rock, deciding whether it is true, deciding whether it matters if it is. Lottie is 2 years younger than me, and already she has the particular certainty of someone who has figured out where she belongs. I find this simultaneously admirable and irritating, which is, I suppose, what sisters are for. The train moves. The mountains burn. I do not open my book. Later, same day. The woman sat down across from me, somewhere around the third stop. She did not ask. She simply settled in with the unhurried authority of someone who has long since stopped requiring permission for things. Set a large carpet-patterned bag on her lap, making soft clinking sounds I could not identify, and looked out the window like a person revisiting something familiar. She was old, 70, perhaps more. White hair pinned with the kind of efficiency that suggests it has always been exactly that way. A cameo at her throat, hands folded over the bag. We rode in silence for a good while, which suited me. Then she said, without turning from the window, "Where are you going? Or where are you running from?" I looked up from the book I still had not opened. She was watching me now, eyes the particular gray of river water in November, cool, clear, moving. "I beg your pardon?" I said. "It's a simple question," she said. "Most people on trains are doing one or the other, sometimes both. I've found it's useful to know which." I considered telling her it was none of her business. I am good at that particular response. I have deployed it with considerable efficiency over the years. Instead, I heard myself say, "I don't entirely know." She nodded as though this was the most satisfactory answer I could have given. "That's honest," she said. "I'll take honest." Her name was Theodora Vane. She was traveling to Nashville to settle the last of her late husband's affairs. A house they kept there for 40 years but never, she said with a small, precise smile, quite managed to live in together at the same time. 40 years? I said. He was a difficult man to be in the same place with, she said, not bitterly, simply as fact, the way you state the weather, but a fine man to love from a reasonable distance. I said, "I'm sorry for your loss." She waved a hand. "Don't be. He had a good death, warm bed and someone holding his hand." She looked out the window. Most people don't get both. Part 2. What Mrs. Vane carried. I asked about the bag. My curiosity had simply outlasted my manners. She opened it without ceremony. Inside, nested in old cloth, were small bottles, perhaps 24, each corked and sealed with different colors of wax, each one labeled in a careful hand too small to read from where I sat. "Water," she said. "Water from places. Places I have been. Places that mattered." She lifted one, amber wax, a small yellowed label. "This one is from a river in Tennessee, a valley called Harlan's Hollow. I passed through it once, 30 years ago." She held it to the train window. The light came through it pale gold. "There was a man there who gave me directions when I was lost. Quiet sort. Had a small cabin right on the river." Something moved through me that I could not name. "I know that valley," I said. "I grew up there." She looked at me with those river-gray eyes. "Did you?" she said. It was not quite a question. "My mother grew up there too. Clara Pryor Marshall." I paused. "There was a man named Reed, Calhoun Reed, who lived on the old Harlan property. He was a kind of godfather to our family. He died a few years ago. The train moved through a cut in the mountain, the light going briefly dark, then opening again. Mrs. Vane set the bottle carefully back among the others. "Small world," she said quietly. "Or the right-sized one," I said. I surprised myself with that. She looked at me with something new in her expression. Reassessment. A small recalibration. "Tell me about him," she said. "This Reed." And so I did. Part 3. What I told her. I told her about the flat rock, Clara's Rock, as it had come to be known locally, after my mother visited it nearly every day as a child. I told her how Calhoun Reed used to sit on the bank near that rock in the early mornings, so still that the herons would land nearby without noticing him. I told her about the jar. My mother had told me the story so many times it had become part of how I understood the world. That kindness given freely, without debt or expectation, travels further than the hand that offered it. She had given a crawfish in a glass jar to a lonely man when she was a child. He had released the crawfish into the river, left the empty jar on the rock, and every year, for the rest of his life, placed a fresh jar of river water there before the first frost. When he died, it became a tradition. The valley kept doing it. Nobody organized it. It simply continued, the way river water continues. "That is a fine story," Mrs. Vane said, "and you grew up inside it." She folded her hands over the bag. "That's a particular kind of luck. Most people have to go looking for fine stories." I thought about Lottie's letter. Better at leaving than arriving. "I'm not sure I knew that's what it was," I said. "When you grow up inside something, you mostly just see the walls." Mrs. Vane was quiet for a moment. "What does your sister need from you?" she asked. Not unkindly, just directly, the way certain old women ask the question everyone else has been walking around. I looked out the window at the mountains going past. "I think she just needs me to show up," I said. "And I think I've been afraid that if I do, if I let myself be close to home again, I won't want to leave." "And is leaving so important?" I started to say yes. The word was ready, well practiced, right at the front of my mouth. Then I thought about the flat rock in the river, about a man who walked until he found something worth staying for, and my mother at the door of a cabin as a girl, holding out a jar with a crawfish in it to a lonely man, not knowing what she was beginning. About whether leaving had ever really been freedom or just the appearance of it. "I don't know," I said instead. She nodded. "That's honest," she said again. "I'll take honest." Part 4. Nashville Station, October 5th, 1905. Morning. We arrived just after 7. The train station was loud and smelled of coal smoke, wet wool, and the particular kind of hurry that train stations specialize in. Mrs. Vane reassembled herself with the calm efficiency of someone who is never rushed by other people's urgency. She straightened her cameo. She lifted her bag, the bottles chinking softly against each other like a small, careful music. On the platform, she shook my hand. Her grip was firm and certain. "The valley will still be there," she said. "Rivers are patient." Then she turned and walked into the crowd and was gone. I stood on the platform with my unopened book and something in my chest that was not quite the stone it had been when I boarded. Something looser, something that felt, tentatively, like the beginning of an answer. Lottie was waiting at the far end of the platform. She was 20 years old and looked it. Bright-eyed, impatient, already scanning the crowd before I had spotted her. When she saw me, she did not wave. She simply put her hands on her hips with the expression of someone who has been waiting a year for this moment and intends to make that known. I walked toward her through all that noise and hurry, and when I reached her, we stood for a moment without speaking. Then she said, "You look like something happened to you on that train." "Something did," I said. She looked at me for a moment with those clear, direct eyes, our mother's eyes, the same ones I see in the mirror every morning. "Good," she said, and took my arm. October 7th, 1905. Room at Lottie's house. The spare room at Lottie's is comfortable amid the odor of camphor and old curtains. Lottie and I have been talking for 3 days about Mama, about the valley, about what it means that Lottie chose Nashville and I chose Knoxville, and neither of us has gone back to Harlan's Hollow. Not really. Not for more than a holiday visit since we were girls. This afternoon, Lottie asked, "Do you ever miss it? The river? Mama's rock?" I thought about Mrs. Vane and her bottles of water, about places that mattered, carried carefully, sealed with wax. "Yes," I said, more than I admitted to myself. Lottie was quiet for a moment. "Mama put the jar out last October," she said. "She wrote me about it, said nobody asked her to. She just knew it was time." Outside the window, Nashville went about its business. I thought about the valley, about Mama and Pa, too, about river water catching October light. I think I would like to go home. Not to leave something, just to arrive. Epilogue. A note from Sedalia. The Journal of Evangeline Clara Marshall, aside from school teaching notes, contains only that one entry. But the cedar box held one other thing I did not mention at the start. A photograph. Small, slightly blurred the way photographs were in those years. A young woman standing on a flat rock above a river bend, one hand shading her eyes, the other held loosely at her side. On the back, in a hand that matches the journal, the words, "Home, 1906. She went back, and apparently she stayed. The Marshall family farmed that valley for generations after. The schoolhouse Evie had taught in still stands. There is a small plaque inside the door listing every teacher who served there. Evangeline C. Marshall, 1906 to 1932. 26 more years. The river is still there. On the flat rock, someone has placed a small jar. It is, I think, the same gesture it has always been. A reminder that there is still some good left in the world. Rest now. The letter is sealed. I'm Sedalia Voss, and I'll find you again next week. Good night.